Pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about what's going on in Detroit these days, not just downtown or the New Center area, but throughout the neighborhoods. It's really gratifying. On the front page here, if you look at your inspection report, this is a low-tech presentation, no PowerPoints today. You've got two boxes. The box I want you to look at is the first one. It says okay, fail, incomplete. All of the reports that you'll be looking at on the land bank properties are going to have the fail box checked, and then generally the vacant checked as well. Fail means that there's some things to do, and vacant is at the time of the inspection there was nobody occupying the property at that time. The next line deals with utility services. In most of these homes there is no utility service, and that would be electric, gas, and water are not on at the time of the inspection. The last line in that box, permit required for. You'll see building, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and there's a little sentence, a conjunctive phrase after that, and must be re-inspected by those divisions. A lot of times our department, which is housing, receives calls for a re-inspection, and when we arrive there, they haven't contacted the electrical division or the plumbing division or the mechanical division for their inspector to come and check to see that work that was done by a permit complies with the codes. So that's kind of an important part of that sentence. All right, let's go to exterior structural. That's the second page. Yes, dear.
Are you saying that building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing all have to be inspected by different people?
If the pre-sale inspector request that a permit be pulled to correct a deficiency that requires a permit, yes, then that division has to come and perform the re-inspection.
Okay.
Can you give them a couple examples for what kind of things would trigger a permit each one?
Okay, on here, let me get I don't like that. Building permit, for instance, on a roof repair, roof replacement, you'd have to pull a building permit for that. Electrical, if the service conductors on the back of the house have been removed or stripped, or they're frayed and the ground conductors are exposed, you have to have an electrical permit for that. A lot of the homes that you'll be looking at with the land bank, the wiring has been cut out by scrappers. That's a permit. You got to replace the branch circuits. Plumbing, generally if the water heater was in good shape, it's gone. The copper piping that used to be there is no longer there. That's a permit item. The furnaces or boilers may have been stolen, needing to be replaced. That's a permit item.
But did the walls have to be open when they're re-inspected, like for electrical?
No.
Okay.
You do not have to open walls.
Okay.
Generally.
But that's not to say if you are putting new piping in for a plumbing permit, you need to make sure you call that inspector to look at it before you put new drywall up.
Okay.
All right?
That's
Was that your question?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out at what point do you call them to re-inspect it? If the walls are open and you've done work and you have to re-inspect it before you close it up.
Correct. Okay. Correct. If you're running, and you're right, good point, Robert. When you're running piping, let's say from a basement to a third floor, yes. Before you can cover that wall, the plumbing inspector has to make sure that the joints are secured and comply. Okay? Yes?
What kind of costs are involved for these?
With permit costs, now I'm not real familiar with those, but I will give you a range. Right. Generally, you're right around between $80 and $150.
Per permit?
Per permit, depending upon the scope. Right. If you're replacing a water heater, I think it's somewhere around $80, and if you're putting a water distribution, which is the fancy word for piping, there's an additional expense. Fixtures, most notably sinks, toilets, lavatories, I think they're $20 or $25 extra. So it's not a lot of money.
So what was the span, 80 to what?
80 to 200, and you'll be safe if you're budgeting for permit costs.
All right, so worst case scenario, you got to do it all. All the permits need to be done.
Around $500.
$500?
Mm-hmm. If you are the successful bidder on a property and you have your license changed, your change of address on your license to reflect that you live there, right, then you can pull a homeowner's permit only on single family homes. If it's a two-family, no. You must have a licensed contractor.
But it must be on your driver's license.
Yes, you have to prove that you occupy.
Or in this case, with the auction properties, probably don't have it on your driver's license yet.
I'm from out of state, I just moved there, so.
Oh, okay.
So bring the deed.
Yeah.
When you win the auction, just take the deed, the title.
Oh, that's cool.
It's funny you should mention that. I ran into a guy, I had my coat on. He didn't know I was an inspector and I was going down to have a cigarette break. But anyway, he was complaining about the fact that he was unable to pull a permit as a homeowner. And I said, gee, I'm really sorry to hear that. And he goes, are you a contractor? I said, no, why? Well, I just bought a land bank house and yada, yada, yada. And I started laughing. And I said, where was it at? And he told me, and he said, was the inspector Hummer? And he said, yeah. I said, I'm him. Or I'm he. Well, in any event, he got settled down. He was going to go to the Secretary of State and get the change so that he could pull a permit. They will deny you if you don't have a credential that proves that you either own it or you're residing there or intend to reside there.
So just to be clear, if you're the homeowner and you intend to reside in a single-family residence,
Yes.
you can pull your own permits. You don't have to be
Correct.
a licensed contractor.
Yes, you can pull what's known as a homeowner's permit.
So you can do the work yourself and then have it re-inspected, and you don't need to own one.
Right. Just make sure you know the codes.
But then if you're using a contractor, can he use your permits that you pull?
Yes, you can do that. Some contractors will say that. Yeah.
If you're using it.
Yeah.
If you're using a contract, let him make sure he included in his cost, the cost of getting the permit.
Or excludes it if you intend to do it.
How long normally does it take to get someone out to inspect the work once it's completed?
Oh, within a week? Yeah, less than 5 business days generally.
And if you run into trouble, call me. We'll get him.
Phone number.
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
I'll give it to you.
All right, we're on exterior structure now. So we went over the roofing, gutters and downspouts. One of the key things you should remember whenever you're rehabbing a house is water is your enemy. Water will destroy a lot of things and very quickly. Most of the homes that you're going to be looking at are going to be deficient with gutters and downspouts. Generally, we don't require it, although it's been talked about. We'll have do you know what an elbow is on the end of a downspout? Okay, you have A or B. A is the flat one, B is the skinny one where it goes this way. We like to see another section of downspout attached to that to divert the water 3 feet away from the foundation walls. Sometimes you can't help it. It's just the way it is, and we understand that, so you don't have to knock yourself out or go crazy trying to reconfigure a downspout. But generally, they're pretty simple. You can put the elbow on and 3 feet away from the dwelling with a splash block, preferably to divert the rainwater away and into the lawn. The next one on there is door casing, siding, exterior trim. What we mean by that are fascia boards, soffit boards. Any questions on that? A lot of times the wood is rotted. Or if the house had been previously aluminum sided or vinyl sided, it might have gotten stolen by scrappers and it's no longer there, and that's what we mean by that. Number 4 is pretty simple, window sash, broken glass. Number 5, open joints. And we see this probably 98% of the houses that we inspect, with salt being used a lot over the last 20 years. Instead of when I was a kid, we shoveled the stuff off the snow off the porch. People throw salt and it deteriorates the mortar joints in the bricks in the front porches and also in the masonry steps. We see that on almost every house. It's kind of an easy fix. Chimneys are not. A lot of the properties that we inspect have open mortar joints or missing bricks in the chimneys. That's a bit of an issue. Number 6, defective front porch components. The one that I want to address there is, because it's pretty self-explanatory, is when you have a balcony, either a front or a rear balcony on a home, there's specific specifications with that guardrail, and I'll explain them to you. The lowest rail cannot be more than 4 inches above the deck surface. They say a sphere no greater than 4 inches in diameter cannot pass under that. Does anyone know why? Baby's head. If you're out there in the summertime enjoying the balcony and that rail is too high, a baby could easily crawl off that to its death. And that did happen, unfortunately, when I first started with the city in 2000. Somebody failed to make that correction, and there was a death. The spacing between the uprights, also known as the balusters, has to be the same, no more than 4 inches. And that's for the safety of a young child. Now, what you can do to keep your costs down, if you do happen to get a house with a balcony, front or rear, is barricade the door permanently leading to the balcony and then get to that expense later. Okay? Number 7, you got to keep the lot clean, junk, debris, rubbish, things of that nature. Number 8, locks and missing locks and hardware. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then paint. We don't want to see too much peeling paint. Generally, on the brick homes, you see it on the window frames or on the siding. Garage, roof.
Can I ask you?
Yes.
All the old windows that are all painted like that and they have the crank opens, can you rehab those generally?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
do you need to replace them?
No, you can rehab those, okay? But generally, the labor time that you spend doing that, it's cheaper to buy a replacement window.
Okay.
Really it is. I mean, because you
And
have
then it's like
inside
say
and
that
outside.
need like 17 windows.
Figure about $250 an opening, maybe more. Okay. Go ahead, Robert. Jump in anytime.
Windows, and windows are a big ticket item. You say you
That's
have
why
28
17,
windows.
yeah.
And especially for you do-it-yourselfers, you want to spend your money as effectively as you can to make him happy. So I wouldn't try and fix every window in the whole house.
Okay.
I would just fix every window in the bedroom, and he'll get to the egress requirement. And maybe those other windows, just seal them tight and paint them to take care of lead. Let him pass the inspection, and then you can come back and fix it. All right? Because what we're trying to do here is just make him happy so you can live in the house and make additional repairs. All right?
Okay. And what do we do happy exactly?
No broken glass.
Okay. All right.
And when we're talking about lead, moving the window up and down, if you don't have time to scrape that window and clean it up or go to wall side and buy new ones, moving it up and down is going to generate lead dust. So just seal that window so it doesn't move.
Okay.
You'll pass the lead inspection, you'll make him happy, fix the glazing, you know, and then pass, come back later and save the money for wall side or someone to fix that window.
Good advice. And is it Phaedra?
Yes.
Phaedra and I were having a conversation earlier, and I told her, you know, about the biggest expenses, roof and windows. If you have the money and it's a beautiful house and it's not an issue, have at it. If you're working with limited funds, try to find a house with a decent roof and intact windows. And that was really good advice that you
When they're
got
two
from
stories, you
Robert.
can't really tell the roof.
You can, visually, you can see, and then when you go in the attic, if the roof boards have water stains on them, or there's water stains by the chimney that's in the attic that you'll be able to visually observe, you can pretty much tell. Okay, and valleys too. We cite that a lot. Does everyone know what a valley is? Okay, generally valleys get abused, especially if they're facing west, okay? A valley, it's where do it again. Two roof surfaces intersect. If you have a gable here on the front of the house and then the roof here, that's a valley. Water runs down there, okay? And generally those wear out pretty quick. Okay, we're on garage. Any questions on garages? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Yes?
Just a ballpark. I mean, most of them I've seen that you've got to take down. They're just not worth repairing. What would you guesstimate the damage to take them all down?
Well, on a one-car frame garage, probably around $800 to $1,000. That's generally what you see. Okay, let's go to interior structural. First item there is door hardware, sills, casings, pretty self-explanatory. The second one is stairways, treads, stringers, handrails, guardrails. Any questions on that? Again, it's self-explanatory. I did have a woman in the university district, I did an inspection 2 years ago, and owner occupied, and I cited the handrail for the basement stairway needed to be, it was defective. And she took exception to it, and she said, well, you know, it's there. And I said, well, not really. You have to reach down to grab it. And I said, if you're standing at the top of the landing with a load of clothes and lost your balance, there's nothing to grab. So she goes, okay. She fell down the steps before. She called me to let me know, you know, I got to tell you, I appreciated it, what you taught me after I broke my arm, falling down the steps with a load of clothes in her hands. So even if you say, well, God, there's a handrail there, it might not extend far enough at the top or the bottom, okay? Little funny note. All right, floor covering refers to carpeting, linoleum, ceramic tile. Those are floor coverings. Number 4, floors are the actual floors themselves, like the hardwood floors here. Most notably, you'll see it near radiators in homes where the radiator's been leaking. The hardwood is rotted away and it's kind of, you know, it's not intact. You'll see it in the homes that have water damage from leaking roofs. The hardwood will be buckled. Or in kitchen floors where they've dragged appliances or whatever they were stealing at the time, tore up the subflooring. That's floor. Floor joists, everyone, any questions on floor joists at all?
I have a quick question. When hardwood is damaged by water damage, do you have to pull it all up, or can you sand it down, or? No,
you can, no, hardwood, you can remove it,
okay.
The section that's bad, and replace
okay.
it. Okay. I did a 2-family on field before I came to work with the city near Belle Isle. And these two, they were from Poland. They came and they redid the hardwood floors that had been damaged by the leaking roof, and it was, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you couldn't tell that there had ever been any damage done. So yes, it's very repairable. Okay. A quick fix is to cut it out and then, you know, put carpeting over. Well, of course, you got to replace it with 3/4 inch. But you can put carpet over it and then get to it later, like Robert says, if you're in a limited budget. Okay. But no, they can be easily repaired.
Okay. About the joist, because I was bidding on a house that had a fire. So if there's damage to a joist, can you just re-support it on either side and?
Sister it?
Yeah.
That's the term that you're calling it. Yes, you can, but without seeing it in person, it's hard to see. Yeah. Okay. Alrighty, basement foundation walls. You'll see leaking on a lot of our reports. And even if there's a little bit of moisture around the perimeter of the walls, generally that can be repaired by either dry lock, restoring the grade, and fixing the downspouts and extending them away from the foundation walls.
Dry lock is a paint?
Yes, it is. It's very hard to apply. It's like putting gel, it's real thick. And usually you only need to go up 2 or 3 courses. You know, in the block? Okay. All right.
You had 3 steps there. The dry lock, the restore the downspouts, and the more.
Grade. Restore the grade to positive pitch. So that, you know what that is, correct? Okay. We're good on that? Good.
The outside land.
All right, number 6 is plaster drywall. That's pretty common in most of the houses that you'll be looking at. Peeling paint. You need it to be scraped and repainted, including closets and basements. Those are the 2 areas where we perform re-inspections that were overlooked in the rehab. So don't forget the closets and the basements. And number 8, you'll probably attack that first, removing any junk, debris, or rubbish that's there. You'll get that out of your way. Smoke detectors, touchy issue because it has to do with safety. We require battery-operated, not hardwired, battery-operated smoke detectors at the top of each stairwell, basement, 2nd floor, and 3rd floor. If it's an attic, you don't need it. It's not living space. And generally on the 1st floor, preferably as far away from the kitchen as you can put it, because kitchens, when you're cooking, tend to set them off, and then that means you're going to take the battery out. So now we have a useless detector. Okay? If you buy a home, a fire-damaged home, like you were saying, where the walls are open, you are going to be required to install hardwired smoke detectors.
Makes sense.
Okay? But in generally all the other cases, battery-operated is fine. Okay? Egress, and this is what Robert was talking about in windows. We require that in each bedroom or sleeping room, sometimes, well, it doesn't have a closet. Well, gee, you know, people use it as a bedroom anyway. You have to have at least one window for egress, where the occupant can get out or the fireman can come in. And does anyone know what the square footage of that window should be? 5.7.
Pardon me?
5.7 square feet. That's for, so that a firefighter with an oxygen tank on can clear that opening. But anyway, a lot of times I hear people say, well, it's hinged and we just put a padlock on it and we don't have the padlock. You never know what kids are going to do. They can take that and lock it. Now there's a fire and unfortunately there's a problem. All right, egress number 2.
You on second floors?
Pardon me? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
They have ladders.
They have ladders. Yes. That was a good question. We require, with the pre-sale inspection, that you can leave the house without a key or use of special knowledge, a combination, in case there's a fire. Now, the Detroit Police Department advises people to double key their deadbolts, so there's kind of a little bit of a conflict. We require one door, and usually the front door. If people are going to break in, they're going to usually break in at the side or the rear, not the front. So anyway, any questions on interior or structural? We're good?
Before you move, can you just highlight what the building permit would be required for here?
Building permit here? Yes. Foundation walls. Sometimes you'll see a house where the blocks, the masonry blocks, are off the footing, or there might be what's called a step crack that goes all the way down. That's a permit item, okay?
It can be fixed?
Yes. Anything can be fixed with the right amount of money. Okay.
Because I almost bought a house that had the blocks just jointed out, and it went all the way through the bricks on the outside of the house.
Yep, you're right.
And I just was too scared to buy the house.
Expensive repair, but repairable nonetheless.
How expensive do you think? Average?
In the several thousands.
That's what I thought. That's not where I wanted to spend the money.
No, we want to.
Any other questions on structure?
So just foundation walls would be the only place for a permit?
No, joists in the basement, support beams, columns. I walked into a house in southwest Detroit. It was a 2-family, and when I went down the stairway, it was like, what? There were no columns. They had been torched out, and I got out of that area as fast as I could. No, that would be a permit item, okay? All right, let's move on to interior electrical. First deficiency we look at there is wall switches. Generally, unless the house has been vandalized, they're fine. I will make a comment on 3-way switching. Does everyone know what a 3-way switch is? Who doesn't know what a 3-way switch is? Okay. That means I can turn on these lights from 2 locations. And on a stairway, generally at the bottom of the steps and at the top. You know, it's like, hey, Bob, turn the light off, I'm done. No, you got to be able to turn it on or off from either the top or bottom, okay? And sometimes we see where those switches are not wired correctly or they're missing. And not the basement. We don't count the basement as living space. It's habitable areas from a 1st floor to a 2nd floor and a 3rd floor. A lot of the houses in the University District and in Indian Village, they have 3 finished floors, so you need a 3-way to each floor, okay? Light fixtures, pretty self-explanatory. Oh, I thought you had a question. Plug outlets. The most common thing we see there, E3, and look down to E12, where it says change all ungrounded 3-prong receptacles to 2-prong polarized receptacles. We see that almost in every house, where for convenience sake, the old parallel blade or 2-blade receptacles have been replaced with a grounded outlet, so you don't need an adapter to run a vacuum cleaner or computer equipment, things of that nature. We ask for those to be removed and replaced with the 2 parallel blade, okay?
Why is that?
Why is that? You've only got 2 when those houses were built 80 years ago, they only ran 2 conductors, a hot and a neutral. The 3-pronged outlet has a ground, a bare ground. And if you do what's known as a Chicago loop, have you ever heard of this? They do it in Chicago a lot to get away with stuff. They take the neutral wire, which goes to the ground bar in your load center and they tie a bare copper to it and then run it to the grounded outlet. And when an inspector inserts a tester in there, it'll show ground. But we know that's not. Okay. But anyway, that's the most common. Okay.
So your contractor will do this, or do you have to beware that he might try and do
No, if
this
you have a
sooner?
report that requests that you change them,
Okay.
you can see. Okay. The easiest way to picture is it's like a 2 eyes and a nose. That's a grounded outlet.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have that in a house, unless it's been rehabbed because it was burned up by fire, you know that it's ungrounded. Okay. And it's easy to check to see. Number 4, cover plates. Those are, again, very important for children. They have a tendency to be inquisitive and poke things where they shouldn't. And if you don't have a cover plate on an outlet or a switch, they could get shocked. I don't think they'd get killed, but it would be very unpleasant. What's not here, and we add on a lot on number 4, is junction box covers in the basement. Who doesn't know what a junction box is? Oh, good. Oh, a junction box is where multiple wires enter into a box and they're connected. And there's no outlet there or no switch. We need a plate to cover that junction box, again, to prevent someone from inserting a conductor in there like a golf. This happened to me too. He took a golf putter that his grandfather had in the basement and stuck it in and created a shock. And just so you know, and this is a real fine point, if it's a plastic junction box, you have to use a plastic cover. If it's a metallic junction box, you have to use a metallic cover. You can't switch them and be code compliant. All right, fuses. Most of the homes that you'll be looking at have had their services upgraded to breakers, but if you have a fuse box, we'll be looking at that to make sure that you don't overfuse it, like put a 30 amp fuse in a 15 amp slot. Because what happens then is the wires will heat, and if the correct amperage fuse was in there, then the fuse would pop and shut current down to wherever you had the problem. If you overfuse it, the fuse won't pop and you will have a fire. So you don't want to ever do that.
So you are not going to require us to replace?
No, if you have a fuse box with the correct amount of outlets for our purposes, then we're fine. We're good with that, okay? Well, let me qualify that just a little bit. If it's a 30 amp service, then you must upgrade, okay? And every now and then you'll see one, but I haven't seen one of those in probably about 6 or 7 years, and I've been doing this for 15 years, so we got rid of most of the 30 amp services. Right. All right, number 6 will probably be checked on all of your inspection reports. Remove or replace unapproved wiring. Unapproved wiring, for the most part, the 2 most common things that we see are below joists in a basement. Wires have to go through joists in the holes that have been bored for that purpose. If the basement had been finished and there was a suspended ceiling, we didn't require the wires to go through the joists then, but when the suspended ceilings came down so that the scrappers could access the copper piping or the line sets, now you have a bunch of wires hanging below the joists. So if you replace the drop ceiling, then you've complied that below joist wiring because it can't be punctured. You've got a surface between it and where it's at. That's the first most common unapproved wiring. The second is surface mounted, where if you took a piece of Romex wiring and just stapled it to a wall, it's a puncture hazard. So you have to have that either in a conduit, a raceway, or a greenfield cable, where the wiring is protected from being punctured. Okay, and we see it underneath kitchen sinks for garbage disposals a lot of times. We'll see it there. Those are the 2 most common forms of unapproved wiring. All right, number 7, that if you have a 60 amp service, but if you look at, let's skip to number 8 and then we'll come back to that, okay? Number 8, for our purposes, and again, this is not a code requirement. This is a deficiency that we'll cite. In a living room, we're looking for 4 outlets. In a dining room, we're looking for 2. In the kitchen, 3. Each bedroom, 2. Rec room in a basement or at the first floor back of a house or a second floor like a sun porch, we want 2 there. Bathroom, 1. If you are buying a house that has multiple bathrooms, the only bathroom that has to have an outlet is the primary bath. A lot of times in some of these homes in the University District and also in Indian Village, there'll be numerous bathrooms. They're not all primary. The primary bathroom is where we require that outlet. And again, that's not a code requirement. That's our pre-sale guideline.
All right, say those again, please.
Living room, 4. Dining room, 2. Kitchen, 3. Each bedroom, 2. Rec rooms, 2. Bathroom, primary bathroom, 1.
You don't require any in the basement then?
Laundry circuit
That's it.
and lighting. Just the laundry circuit. All right, now let's go back to 7. If you buy a home that has a 60 amp service and the right amount of outlets are in each of those rooms and the service conductors are in good shape, they're intact, you're not going to be asked to upgrade to 100 amp. It's not an automatic. Oh my God, it's got 60 amp, city's going to ask for 100. No, we're not. However, if we have to ask you to put an additional outlet in any of these rooms, that automatically triggers the upgrade to 100 amp service. Okay, we clear on that? All right, service entrance conductors. There's a lot of confusion within the public domain about where the responsibility for the homeowner ends and where Edison's begins. The meter enclosure, where your meter is at, there's wires that are attached from the top of that meter enclosure, anchored to the dwelling. And there's usually, if there's not a, help me here, a riser with a weather head on it, there's your service conductors come in a gooseneck, and they're connected to the drop from Edison. Edison responsibility ends at the point of connection. The homeowner's responsibility is from that point all the way down to the meter enclosure, from the meter enclosure to the load center. That's all your responsibility. All right, we need electric lighting in the following areas: laundry room, furnace room, toilet room, utility room. Utility room would be if you have a home that's not on a basement or crawl. You have your furnace and water heater would be in that. That would be what utility room means. Kitchen, stairways. And there's another reminder about 3-way switching. 10 is the laundry circuit that you asked about. We have to have a 20 amp. The key word there is separate. You cannot use that laundry circuit to tap off for other outlets in the basement or in the kitchen. It has to be by itself. We used to accept one light, usually over the laundry tub. If there was a junction box there, one wire going into it, the other wire coming out, going to the laundry circuit, we were fine with that. But it has to be separate, 20 amp. And, number 11, junction boxes, we talked about that. If you have a wire that goes to nowhere, it has to be in a junction box. It's just hanging out there. A lot of times, no, you can just put it in a junction box. You might need it later for continuation somewhere else. We see it a lot where, you know, the range hood fans, they've been stolen. There's a wire hanging out of the wall. You can put a junction box there, but you cannot cover up a junction box inside of a wall. Because if you have a problem later, an electrician who didn't do the work, he doesn't know there's a junction box buried in that wall. You cannot do it. It has to be surface mounted. Okay? We talked about ungrounded plugs. Good. Let's go to plumbing. We're getting there.
Well, hold on. Can you go back and say what permits you're going to require for what area here?
Oh, permit items under electrical deficiencies. Get your pen and circle. E6, E7, E8, E9, E10, and E11 sometimes. Not always. All right, on plumbing. Number 1 talks about obstructions. That's going to be a surprise for you when you activate the water, and then you'll find out where which traps are obstructed or if the building drainage system is obstructed. Generally on the homes that you'll be buying, we don't know. Okay? Number 2, replace leaking. These refer to traps. The most common violation that we see with traps is the flexible traps or the flexible piping. We do not accept those. Material tends to get caught in the ribbing, creating an obstruction. So you'll see replace flexible trap with rigid piping. Some municipalities accept them, Detroit does not. So, number 3, faucets. Generally, bathtubs and laundry tubs have been stripped of their faucets in the homes that you'll be looking at. Number 4, circle this. This is your permit line. If you see 4 checked, repair, replace, defective, missing, fixtures, waste piping, water closet is the fancy word for toilet, and other, generally soil stacks and vent piping. Those are your permit items.
Go back again,
Yes.
please.
Pardon?
Just go through this one more time.
All right, your fixture, number 4, just sink, lavatory, bathtub, laundry tub, waste pipe, water closets, toilet, water heater, water piping. Other would be soil stacks or vent piping. Yes?
I just saw a house that I'm pretty sure in the basement, the piping was covered in asbestos.
Those were more than likely boiler steam lines that you saw. They were sleeves, and they were horizontal pipes.
Well, they were round pipes that were about this big.
Those are,
So you have to have a specialist come in?
that's on mechanical.
Oh, okay.
But to fast forward to that, you can generally encapsulate that material.
Yeah, close it in behind drywall?
No. The formula used to be, let's see if I get this right now. There was a specific type of tape that you could wrap around it and then paint it. So you would, if there was asbestos there, which we don't know, we suspect there probably was, but we don't know. It's been eliminated as a hazard. Okay. Okay. Are you okay with what we're going to ask for permits for in plumbing? All right. Floor drain covers and clean out plugs, pretty self-explanatory. Number 6, joints where you have a fixture like a sink, lavatory, bathtub should be caulked to prevent water getting behind and damaging the wall surface behind it. Number 7, we'll see this a lot too. Tub shower walls and partitions of a water-resistant material. A lot of these properties have been damaged for the plumbing and the fixtures, and you'll see us check that. If the walls have a crack in them, if it was a laminate that got destroyed, it has to be replaced. It's not a permit, okay, but you need to do that. Number 8 has, again, you'll discover this before we will. If there's a defective flush mechanism on a toilet, we won't be able to tell at the time of the inspection because there was no water service. Number 9, loose fixtures, toilets, lavatories, laundry tubs, sinks. It's the worst thing for a fixture to be loose because when you shake it, the supply piping, the connections can be damaged, and also the waste piping, your traps. So you don't really want fixtures to be loose. They need to be firm. And if you're going to install your own toilets, be very careful when you're cranking down those nuts because you will crack the porcelain. I've done it. Only once. Worn surface. A lot of the fixtures, if they're still there, will have been damaged by leaking faucets over the year where the enamel porcelain's been worn away and you'll see black. You can buy epoxy paint at Home Depot or Lowe's to be used in those specific locations, or you can have the whole tub reglazed for about $250. It's cheaper to buy the kit, make us happy, as Robert would say, and you can have it reglazed or replaced later. Proper water pressure, again, that's not going to be something that you or I will know until you activate the water and find out. Water heaters. The most common things that we see is the absence of a discharge tube on a water heater. All water heaters, I shouldn't say all, gas water heaters have what's known as a pressure relief valve. If the pressure in that tank for some reason builds up, instead of it bursting, the pressure relief valve opens to let the water discharge. And generally, the discharge tubes were copper piping. That's very attractive to the strippers, and they've taken them. So they'll just be the relief valve. We want you to install a 3/4 inch threaded at one end that goes into the pressure relief valve tube that terminates not less than 4 inches from the floor, or not more than 4 inches from the floor, rather. And the end of the pipe that's facing the floor can't be threaded. We don't want you to attach garden hoses or anything else to them. Okay? We see that the most. The second most common deficiency with water heaters is the vent pipe that takes the exhaust gas out of the house and into the chimney. The mortar around the vent pipe is not intact and needs to be remortared. That prevents carbon monoxide gas from coming back into the utility room area.
With smoke detector, do you require a CO detector?
No, we do not.
But I recommend you get them.
Mm-hmm.
Put one in the basement or something.
Okay. All right, so that's, there is one, we call it special deficiency on plumbing. A lot of times when people had glass block windows installed in their basements, especially the ones that had a toilet room, water closet, and a laboratory, there were no vents. You have to have vents in bathrooms, either by window or by mechanical ventilation. You have an exhaust fan that's with a duct attached to it that exhausts to the outside of the house. That's a permit item if you do that. You can also make openings in the doors and put cold air return registers on either side of the opening so that you get ventilation into a basement bathroom. Those are the two things that you'll see added on. All right, heating. We're almost done. What you're going to see in most of these homes is the absence of a heating system, which is, for you permit concerned people, that would be H12, where it says replace missing furnace boiler. We do not require permits for replacement of radiators. And I kind of wish we did, because the radiator sizing, the number of fins, is specific to the area of the room that that radiator is designed to heat or not heat. We don't require a permit for that, but be very careful if you're going to do your own work on that to make sure that you properly size the radiator to the room size that it's going to be installed in. And it's done by fins. They count the fins. Anyone not know what a fin is? All right.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So radiators go with boilers and registers go with furnace. Is that
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. A register it can be mechanically opened or closed, so you can shut heat down to a room or limit the amount of heat that escapes from the register into that room.
And either way, you don't need a permit for those.
No,
But
not
you
at
need,
all.
right.
Pardon me?
No.
Oh. All righty. Are there any questions?
One more thing I want Harry to just talk about real
I
quick.
have a question.
Temporary occupancy. Can you live in the house while you're making the repairs?
Yes, you can, provided you have full utility service, smoke detectors in place, operational bathroom and kitchen. That's our definition of temporary occupancy okay. And that's generally issued for 6 months.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. You're more than welcome.
All right.